Good afternoon and welcome to my big backyard. I've been doing lots of chores out here at the vegetable garden over the summer, and I haven't even bothered to video any of them and show what I'm doing. So I thought I'd bring you out here to the vegetable garden and show you what I have. It is August, it's like August 15th or something like that. Oh good grief. It's August 22nd. I can't believe time has gone by so quickly. But anyway, let's just check out the vegetable garden. As you see here, my tomatoes have finally started perking up again. I've been harvesting a good amount of tomatoes the whole summer. I will say I'm very pleased with these Jersey Devil tomatoes as a paste tomato. They're not the most beautiful tomatoes in the world, but they're very thick and meaty. There's not a lot of hollow spaces in them, and there's definitely not a lot of juice in them, which of course that's what you expect from a paste tomato, but I've had paste tomatoes before that have been rather hollow and not that much meat. These are very meaty. I've got my Cherokee purple tomatoes. As you can see, I still have quite a few green tomatoes on the vine here. They continue to grow really well, and they are ripening up slowly. I've been picking them, obviously. You move over here, these tomatoes are called Black Beauty. And Black Beauty turns out to be one of my favorite tomatoes for slicing, eating, making a sandwiches. They have such good flavor. I think there's one right here, ready to go. I've been picking them like this, a little teeny bit on the green side, and letting them ripen up in the house because stink bugs tend to come in and take little nibbles out of my tomatoes, and if they do, you end up with spotty tomatoes that are starting to rot. So if I pick it like this and leave it on the table for a couple of days, this will get nice and dark and red and black on top, and they're just delicious. So the basil, all of this basil is seed grown except the purple one, I believe. And the basil's doing really well for me. I've been picking basil and making tea out of the basil. Basil tea is really delicious. It's as simple as taking wads of basil leaves and pouring boiling water over it and waiting to get tea. The thing I've added to it is that I add stevia leaves to it from my stevia plant. And when you do that, you don't need any other sweetener. You end up with a nice, sweet, delicious basil tea. So as you can see, there are definitely plenty of other varieties of tomato in here. The black from Tula tomatoes are right here. They don't ever actually turn black. And I don't know that any of these have really ripened up for me yet. But as you can see on all my tomatoes, I do have blossoms still forming. There was a period of time where the nights were cold, the days were warm. It just wasn't doing anything for my tomatoes. But all of my tomatoes are doing fantastic right now. What I thought were short, stumpy tomatoes have been growing tremendously. This one over here is my 4th of July tomato. I definitely did not have tomatoes on it for the 4th of July. But as you can see, there's plenty here that I can harvest today, and I will do that. Sticking with the tomato theme, we'll go over here. This is one of my volunteer tomatoes. It's grown, it's been a little bit slower growing, but I'm sure it's going to be delicious. My favorite tomato here is these orange ones. I believe they are called Sun Sugars, and they are so good. Mixed in with them, there's a tomato here called Tigerella, and they're a little bit stripy. I don't have any ripe on here right now, but they've been good as well. Back there is a red cherry tomato, which is a volunteer. I'm not exactly sure what variety it is or where it came from. You just never know around here. As you can see, the cherry tomatoes have spread out like crazy. They crisscross each other. It's really hard for me to tell one plant from another. I can only really tell because of I have to follow the plant out of the ground and up. You can see this Sun Sugar goes this way, and the Tigerella goes this way. So these are Tigerella tomatoes, and those are Sun Sugar tomatoes, and everything is just all jumbled up here. I have to kind of guess what's ripe when. These here are called chocolate pear tomatoes, and they've been quite good as well. I haven't quite figured out exactly when they're completely ripe. I've been harvesting them because they're they pop right off of really easily. Like, you barely have to touch them to get them off of the vine. But you can see that this is a little bit green still, and if I cut it open, it's got a big green, it's green through the center. So it really needs to ripen just a little bit longer. But like everything else, if I pull it early, I can just let them sit on the counter until they feel nice and soft. They are really good. I've been enjoying them. The one thing that I do with these cherry tomatoes is eat them every day for lunch. Let me go find my basket. I've been, you take your cherry tomatoes, like 10 or 20 of them, cut them up, a little salt, and then I mix in a packet of sweet and spicy tuna or hot and spicy tuna, one of those little tuna packets that you have at the grocery store, and a teeny bit of mayonnaise. Just stir it all up and make essentially a tuna salad that's very heavy on the tomatoes. And that's what I've been eating for lunches at work. It's really easy to take the tomatoes to work and eat them. Down here I've got some more different varieties of tomatoes. I don't have them all labeled because I don't know what they all are, because like this one right here, this is a volunteer. It's one of the ones that I grew last year, but I don't know which one. But behind it is chocolate sprinkles. Chocolate sprinkles is like a drop shaped tomato. I believe that this is a complete chocolate sprinkles right here. So it's a little pointy on the one end and delicious. It's another one that's not quite ripe at this stage, but this is usually when I end up picking them. So I pop this in. I'm not going to do all the harvesting with you just standing here watching this video. That would be kind of boring just to watch me throw things into a bucket. So basically that's it for the tomato crop. I mean, this is another 4th of July. It's stuck down here on the end. All these different cherry tomatoes. What's this one? This one's purple bumblebee. The truth is I can't tell one from another. I think just based on the striping that this is purple bumblebee, but I don't know why it's called purple because it hasn't turned, they're not that dark. I haven't seen one that's perfectly ripe yet. Maybe I'm just not eating them ripe. Over on the other side of this, I do have a volunteer of the orange tomatoes. Here's an example of what happens if you do not trellis your tomatoes. This tomato comes out of the ground right here. It's just a volunteer. I didn't stake it up or anything. And as you can see, this is the network of how it's growing. It's just a mass that curled up on the ground here. If it sits too close to the ground, it will eventually root in. This one hasn't rooted in because I move it a lot when I'm trying to pick the tomatoes. But that's basically how they grow, which is interesting and takes up a lot of space. I definitely know why everybody trellises their tomatoes. Here I have a younger volunteer tomato. I don't even know what kind this is. It's very small, but it looks like I'm gonna get tomatoes quite shortly. Actually, there's a little tomato right there. I'll find out what kind it is when it gets ripe. But really that's it for the tomatoes, other than here's a better look at that volunteer red tomato that I have over here, the red cherry. So they're looking really good. I'm very pleased with how the tomatoes are doing this year. I definitely am not short on tomatoes. But now let's take a look at my pepper crop. The peppers are mostly on this side of the garden. So actually on the way to peppers, we may as well stop here. A week or so ago, a friend gave me an ube plant. Ube is like a Filipino sweet potato. And so here's my ube plant. It seems to be doing well. I don't know what's gonna come of it. We'll find out. Hopefully I get ube. So this tomato I planted from a plant that I bought at the farmer's market. It's not a tomato, I'm sorry. This pepper was a plant I bought at the farmer's market. It's a Scotch bonnet. And these right here, these little buds are the very first blooms this year on this particular pepper. I don't have any peppers, and it's only just now flowering at the end of August. So I'm hopeful that I will get some peppers. To be honest, I don't know what I'm gonna do with Scotch bonnets anyway, but you know, I just like to grow things. These 3 plants here, 1, 2, and 3, are Yum Yum sweet peppers. They're like a lunchbox pepper, and it took me a ton of patience to let them sit long enough to turn from green to whatever color they are going to turn. But as you can see, I have nice red ones here, and back here, these are orange, and this one up here is also orange. So I can either pick them green, or I can use the orange and red ones, and they're good. I've been eating them with a little guacamole, and as you can see, these plants are still flowering and producing. The one in the back has been in too much shade, I believe. It's really tall because it's stretching to reach the sun, and it's just not growing as well. I think planting them this many thick in here just hasn't been good for it, especially with this in front of it. This pepper here is my shishito pepper. My shishitos have been producing really well for the whole season. I've had a couple shishito pepper meals, and I do need to harvest more, just like on everything else. I'll just harvest them today. I've got 2 of these plants, and just like with the Yum Yum pepper, the one in the back, because it's crowded out by this giant marigold, is struggling a bit more than the one that's in the front. But they are going to produce plenty of peppers for me, and I really enjoy them, just kind of blistered and eaten with a little salt. They're quite good. My marigolds are huge in here. Down here at the bottom, these little peppers, this one got overgrown by the marigold, and this one back here is in way too much shade, but these are called fire and ice peppers. I'm growing them because I had free seeds. They look like an ornamental pepper, but I think you're supposed to be able to eat them. I have not done much with them. I've picked a couple, and I've put them in, I put some in some guacamole the other day. I don't know if it made any difference, or I tasted it, or I didn't, to be honest. No idea. I haven't actually just picked one up and eaten it plain myself yet. Down here where I cut all my kale off, the kale is actually growing back, but it's about time to start planting fall crops to get started too. So as I come around here, we'll get to my other peppers. These plants here, this one, this one, this one, and these 2, these are New Mexico jalapeno mix. They are supposed to be jalapenos, but they're also supposed to be different colors. So this yellow one, and believe me, it took me tons of patience to wait for these to ripen up. But I have a yellow one here and a yellow one there. I'm hoping that I get at least one of the orange ones. This one, these little peppers are so small up here right now, so I'm gonna have to be patient and let them grow. And these plants haven't really started producing yet. But these 2 over here have both given me yellow jalapenos, so I'll be picking them today. Well, maybe not. I think they could use another day or 2, but I'm looking forward to getting those. This pepper here with the cool variegated leaves is fish pepper. I've never grown fish pepper before, and I don't really know exactly what I'm doing with fish pepper, but I'll be picking the red ones today, and just putting them in the fridge. I might dry them and make like a fish pepper seasoning. I don't have any real plans for it, but it was cool and the seeds were free, and I love the variegated plant. I'm actually tempted to dig this plant up and keep it all winter, but I have additional fish pepper seeds, so I could just grow them myself, either from the seeds from this plant or just grow new seedlings. Here we have gochugaru peppers. The gochugaru is a Korean chili pepper. As you can see, they're starting to turn red, some of them. I'm waiting for them to turn red, and the plan for these is to dry them and make a spice out of them. Just like that's what you typically, when you buy gochugaru pepper, it's a dried spice, like a pepper flake. And that's what I'm going to make myself with these. I've discovered that basically anything that you make spice-wise out of your peppers tastes so much better than the same spice if you buy it in the store. I think it's the freshness, the oils are fresher in it. It's just so much better. Now over here, these lovely yellow peppers are ají amarillo, or ají chinchi amarillo peppers. It's a Peruvian hot pepper. I'm growing it because there's a Peruvian restaurant I like that makes this ají amarillo sauce, which is delicious. And I tried to replicate it, but I can't. You can buy ají amarillo paste to use to make sauce, but I just figured why not grind up and dry my own ahi amarillo peppers, and I could make that stuff myself. I'm not sure, there's a couple on here that have like rotted. I think it's because we've been getting a lot of rain, but for the most part they're doing really well, and I'm pleased with these plants as well. Down here they're disappointing plants. This one, this little guy, I think, that guy, and this guy are my ahi charapita peppers. I've grown these before. They make a really cool bush with little teeny orange peppers the size of a pea. The peppers are really hot and really flavorful. They're very, very, very good. But as you can see, my plants just aren't growing this year. I'm gonna leave them here for the whole season, and then when the season's over, I'm definitely gonna dig up the nicest one and put it in a pot and keep it all winter long. You can winter over peppers in your house. Not all peppers, but most, I believe. And that way I'll start out with a much bigger plant next year, and I'm just hoping that that works out in my favor. And the last peppers that I have growing are Aleppo peppers. An Aleppo pepper is a hot pepper. It's used to make a spice as well. A lot of people use Aleppo pepper seasoning, and that is my plan, is to get these nice and ripe. There's a little squat ripe one. It's a little bit deformed, but that's fine. I want to get these nice and ripe and grow them as well. Make seasoning as well. So, ooh, it's hot out here and bugs keep landing on me. So much fun. So let's talk about some of the other things that I've had to do to maintain this garden. As you can see, my trellising system is cattle panels or hog panels. Not sure what I guess they're hog panels because they're smaller at the one end. And I've basically just tied my tomatoes up to it with this plastic tape. This is really the best trellising system that I've tried so far. Last year I used these little plastic clips, but they're a pain in the butt, and this tape has actually been much easier to deal with than the plastic clips were. So I'm very pleased with the trellising this year. It's holding them up quite well, and it's enabled me to clear out the bottom a little bit to give the peppers a bit more space to breathe. So quite pleased with that. If you remember, over here I had spaghetti squash, and my spaghetti squash was attacked by vine borers really early. I did get about 8 spaghetti squash. Some of them I had to throw away. One of them or 2 of them I've cooked and eaten already. I think I only managed to cook and eat 2. The ones I had to throw out were infested. I mean, bugs got right into the squash themselves, and the vine just didn't make it. So what I did is I planted 2 more baby spaghetti squash in here a few weeks ago, and while they don't look beautiful, to be honest, they look a little peaky right now. They're growing, and what I'm hoping is that they climb up and do well in this part of the season. We're kind of past the vine borer season, so hopefully I can avoid squash bugs this way. I also planted them with 7 dust in the roots, and I hope that that helps to prevent the vine borers from taking over, if I can get them to grow. Oh, my bad, I missed 2 of my peppers. This one down here, these 2 tiny plants are habanada peppers. So it's a habanero with no heat, and it really doesn't matter that much because they're so small. They're just not doing anything, and they've definitely, as you can see, not producing flowers and peppers. But here, these are Goliath jalapenos. There's tons of flowers on here and buds, and I've harvested some jalapenos from here already. I'm hoping that they get fatter. They appear, I mean, the jalapenos have been kind of narrow on here. The goal with these particular ones is to hollow them out and stuff them. So what I've been doing is when I harvest them, I take them in and I hollow them out, and then I put the hollow pepper in the freezer. Later on, I'll make like a mixture. Once I have enough peppers, I'll make a mixture and I will stuff the frozen peppers. Then that way I won't break them any more than they're already broken. Wrap them up in bacon and then put them back in the freezer. And I will have jalapeno poppers if I'm invited to a party or something else fun. So anyway, you can see the trellising really well over here. And then my new baby squash. Over here, I just cleaned this out today. I ripped down most of my honey nut butternut squash. It didn't do very well for me this year. It really didn't. But I do have a live vine still right here with a little honey nut butternut squash on it. I'm gonna move this and hang it right over this edge there. Beautiful. I'm hoping that this vine continues to grow and that maybe I get more squash this season. I don't see any real signs of vine borers in them, so that's okay. And I also have one honey nut butternut squash hanging here on this vine, and hopefully this vine will also continue to grow. And that brings me all the way down to my last flower bed, or just this side of this one. Over here, I did have this kind of squash. This is Gill's Golden Pippin squash, and as you can see, this one is really small. This one just dried out on the vine after the vine died. As you can see, I've removed that vine from here completely. They should be bigger than this. They're not huge, but they're bigger than this. And it got attacked, of course, by vine borers, and that's why it died. I do have a volunteer petunia in here. And the other thing I have here is this loofah vine, which is finally starting to make its way across the top. No flowers yet. To be honest, I would be surprised if I get any loofahs. If it even blooms for me this season, that'll be a surprise. So we'll see what happens. One thing I'm growing in here that I'm never going to grow again is this plant here. This is holy basil. I've heard that holy basil is nice. People talk about it being good on YouTube, but to be honest, I hate the smell. I just don't like it. It's nice to have in my garden, but it stinks. And so I will not be growing this plant again, but I'm gonna leave it there for this season and rip it out at the end of the season. I don't think it's gonna be a perennial here. I don't think it'll survive the winter. If it does, I'd probably let it go, but I just don't like the smell of it. I think I'll plant more of the other kinds of basils and more thyme and more of this thyme. I haven't harvested any of this thyme, but the thyme seems like it's a good herbal ground cover that I could just keep growing in this garden over time. Time over time. And that it would help keep the weeds down and things in my garden, which would be good. Over here on this side is my monster nasturtium. This nasturtium plant did better than any other nasturtium plants, and it's still going strong, which is more than I can say for any of the others as well. And also my strawberry patch. Now that I have removed all the garlic from here, and the strawberries have all tons of sun because I removed all the cucumber vine that was done for the season. It's doing fantastic. It's spreading out like crazy. I did have Japanese beetles. You can see the evidence in here, and I didn't do, there's one right there. I didn't do much about it, and that's okay. I'm gonna encourage these runners to take over in the strawberry bed. The more strawberry plants I have in here, the more strawberries I'm likely to have next year. This year I really didn't get very many strawberries, and that's really because I didn't, one thing I did not do here is I started fresh with only a few plants, and it was all shaded. There was a ton of shade in here because of having all of the garlic in here. But I'm looking forward to a really good strawberry year next year, I hope. You never can tell. I'll just be careful what I plant elsewhere so that it doesn't mess up my chances of good strawberries. The hard part about this bed is going to be topping it off with soil. I think I'll wait for some of the leaves to die back on the strawberries and top this off as best I can. The one thing about raised beds is you have to fill them up nearly every year. These beds were full of soil at the beginning of the season, and you can see just how far down the rains and the settlement has gone. It's partly due to the organic nature of the soil that I have here. A lot of this soil, it was really just scraped out of a horse barn, and so it's not there's not a lot of inorganic material to it, and that means that it rots and settles much quicker than it would the other way around. So all my beds have to be topped off my plan for this weekend is that I'm going to plant 4 cabbage plants and 4 Brussels sprout plants that I picked up at the nursery a week or so ago. It's the time of year when I need to start those plants if I want to get them to grow. Hopefully it's not too hot and I don't get them to bolt or anything like that. I think I'm going to aim for things like planting them in the corners of these beds. Someplace where something like, if I put a cabbage here, there's going to be room for that to head up, and it's also not going to take away from any of the tomatoes. The other thing that I want to start in here is carrots from seed. So I'll be sprinkling carrot seeds, maybe someplace like this. Just pick an area, plant some carrot seeds for the season. And also I need to restart my kale. And the kale I might put back where I had kale before, which is essentially under here. The benefit of planting these things in the shade now is it'll take some of the heat off of them and prevent them from bolting, and then hopefully I get a good crop of kale. I really do enjoy having that in the winter as well. When the time comes for me to rip down all of these plants, I may be able to plant more things, but it also might be too late in the season to get them started, which makes it more difficult. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look in my garden. I said it was going to be quick, but it really took almost a full half hour. So hopefully that was an enjoyable tour. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff, and have a wonderful evening.